do I have a chair at all? Oh, this is my chair. Gotcha. I guess so if I say something wrong, I can be ejected or something. All right. So yeah, so thanks for coming today. And yeah, I just want to really get into this since we're kind of short on time and there's so much to talk about, I feel. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about the history of Grant Coin, how you came up with this idea and relaunched as Mana recently.
Okay, so we launched Grant Coin in 2015, and for the first year we were basically experimenting with different ideas for doing a socially responsible cryptocurrency. UBI was always part of what we wanted to do, but it was not initially our main focus. Starting in 2016, we decided to make UBI the main focus of the currency because we wanted to simplify it and decentralize it more and eliminate the discretionary aspect. We originally started with the idea of giving away cryptocurrency as grants to charitable organizations and people that were doing good in the world. So then we decided we want to make this completely non-discretionary. We want to follow the philosophy of creating a more egalitarian economy and a cryptocurrency that works for social good, and do this in the simplest way possible. So we decided to focus entirely on the concept of universal basic income and have our currency be distributed as a human right. So we started doing this in 2016, and it was basically like a pilot program. We got up to about 4,000 users that we were distributing the currency to, or about 3,500. And then we decided to launch our own social media platform, which we just launched earlier this year, called Mannabase at mannabase.com. And after we launched that, we went from about the 3,500 users that we had been giving out the grants, the UBI grants to, up to now almost 40,000. So we've had a more than 10 times increase in the number of people receiving our UBI. And we have over 85,000 people who are registered users on the Mannabase platform. We rebranded the currency as Mana, which comes from the ancient myth in the Bible of the idea of the free bread from heaven that the Israelite refugees in the desert were receiving, as the legend goes. And so actually the concept of Mana, that is the first human story of universal basic income. And I think it's incredibly important. The branding matters, actually, because telling the story matters. It's like there was a speaker yesterday who was talking about how people that are doing blockchain need to tell a better story to the general public so that ordinary people can understand what this is all about. So what our project is all about is giving something to people as a human right, simply because if you exist, you have a right to equally share in the creation of new units of currency. Whenever currency is created and issued into circulation, the benefits of that should not just go to the banks that are creating it and profiting off of it. It should go to every human being equally. So that's what our project is doing, and we're experiencing tremendous growth and tremendous interest.
Yeah, I think there's also something especially interesting in the blockchain world as far as this idea of providing everyone who uses a particular cryptocurrency or a coin, or a blockchain, this recognizing their value. As so, imagine like if everyone on Facebook, if let's say Facebook had a blockchain, and so everyone who used that received like a universal, say, dividend from Facebook in the form of like a Facebook currency or something. And so that would be, all the value of Facebook is actually coming from the users themselves. The fact that they have got 1 billion users, it's all the information that they're generating. And so the fact that they're recognized, that recognizing the users of a network, I feel, is such a powerful idea, because you get it like into Metcalfe's law. And then this idea that as the network grows, is the people who are using it are creating the value, so they should receive a share of that value generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the real great aspects that's starting to come out of blockchain is this realization that our value as a network and as individuals shouldn't be monetized to these large corporations that get all the essentially reward off of our unique individual kind of connection to a network. And you're seeing this a lot with, for instance, these projects like Basic Attention Token, who are trying to do it from a marketing standpoint and say that, no, instead of just taking the user and then them just being the, we're going to extract all this information, that we're going to extract all of this value and get none of it, it's switching to this idea of, well, wait a second, why can't the user, you know, if you look at all of the value that Facebook creates, why can't the users of that be the ones who benefit from it? And that, I think, applies not only from the system of currency itself. I think for us, that's kind of the way we looked at currency itself. It's like, okay, wait, well, if there's new money being created into circulation in all these systems in the world, why is it a few banks and a few corporations who are profiting from that, not the general people? And then when you put that to a smaller scale, why is it when Facebook and these different corporations are profiting from this, why is it not us who are getting the benefit, since we are the creation of the value?
Right.
So that's actually the next phase of what we're going to be doing with Mannabase, is we're going to be building this into a full-fledged social media platform, social network, where people will be able to actually use the Mana currency for various purposes that, for example, targeted direct giving. It'll be like a blockchain version of Patreon. If you want to support an artist or a musician or somebody creating creative content, you'll be able to do that with the Mana currency on the Mannabase platform. If you also bloggers as well, similar to what Steemit is doing. So this is our plan, and the actual financial profit from the Mannabase platform, a large portion of that will actually flow back into the currency, so that the users who are receiving the currency as a UBI will be getting the benefit of the monetization of the social media network.
Yeah, and along these lines too of targeting, one of the interesting things I really like about the plans for Mana are the ability to, say, target say a country full of users. So, you know, especially like imagine if like everyone was using Mana, and let's say there was another earthquake in Haiti or something like that, and you know, you want to like increase the currency that they're receiving. You want to have that additional help, so that you could, like, through Mannabase, select, you know, that, like, oh, I want to make sure that I give, say, 10,000 mana is what I'm donating to everyone in Haiti, and then those users would, like, actually receive that. I think that's really interesting, and I think it also it goes along the lines of, I think there's like a form of decentralized targeting here too, because you would say that not everyone in a country that is in need would need it. And so I think it's an interesting kind of layer between fiat currency or whatever currency people are using in general, and let's say the additional to, like, need something. So, like, say you would, if everyone gets something, then the people who are actually in need would be the ones who are exchanging the currency for the currency that they can use, and those who aren't exchanging the currency would be the ones that effectively don't need it. So it would be like this kind of decentralized way of determining need, instead of using a centralized authority trying to figure out need based on, say, income, or, you know, the quality of your roof, or, you know, these other things that would be like a required decision-making process. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think one of the points that reminds me of is the stimulus check that was sent out in the United States. When you actually look at the financials behind it, it was something like 50% of the value was lost in sending them out, and the bureaucracy that went into the process. And this is something that happens in charities and nonprofits throughout the world too. It's a very difficult process to take this group of people, to identify them, to get them the value, and to do so in an efficient way where you actually don't lose a vast percentage of it. And then you take, like, the blockchain atmosphere, and of course, as we all know, that allows for very efficient transaction and to split it up amongst many users. But then the benefit of what Mannabase provides is the unique identification, so that you can be assured of various metrics of a target, so that you can say this specific group in this specific area under this specific context is who I want to support. And I don't want to support one of those individuals, I want to support that whole group, and I want to do it instantly, and I want to do it equally, and you can. And that's kind of what our vision is in creating this kind of targeted giving platform.
Yeah. If I could just say one other quick point about the whole issue of bureaucracy and government and so forth versus a decentralized approach. If we think about, you know, a freedom-based approach to philanthropy and to, you know, putting a floor under which nobody can fall into poverty, if we don't do this through blockchain and through this freedom-based approach, then ultimately it's going to have to be done by government. And I suspect that most of the people in this room don't want a huge government bureaucracy having, this complicated social safety net. We probably would prefer a freedom-based approach to that. But if we don't tackle the problem of poverty in this world in some way, whether it's government or whether it's blockchain, we're going to have severe social problems. So I challenge everybody in the audience that if you don't want a huge government bureaucracy transferring wealth forcibly from the rich to the poor, support a blockchain-based project that's enabling people to do this through their own free choice, which is what Mannabase is doing.
Yeah, so you brought up identity too, so I'm curious, how do you go about figuring out who is a unique user, and what is the current process in order for people to register as a unique user, and what is the kind of future roadmap for doing that?
Yeah, well, this is something that it's a big and important part of not only our project, but the whole field, and even beyond the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, something that's starting to be addressed, which is, much of the world, you take for granted maybe the validity of a U.S. passport or a U.S. ID, but much of the world, it's very hard to actually have certainty that a unique individual is who they are, especially when they don't even have any kind of identification. And that's what's created a lot of these new protocols and blockchain projects like Civic. And for us, we've started the process. We have a proprietary technique that takes the individual's name, a web-based
name, address, and cell phone number, and we filter out phone numbers that are not legitimate actual cell phone numbers that with a carrier where somebody's paying for an account with a mobile carrier. So we filter out the voice over IP numbers that people can create for free. So we do that, and then we do some geographical based algorithms to filter out more likely cases of sign-up fraud, people that are trying to sign up multiple times. We're going to be improving these algorithms over time. We're probably going to be adding biometrics into it too, like fingerprint or voice biometric identification app type of things. So we're just going to be continually improving the process over time. But we're starting, with simple basis, which we believe that the fraud rate is just a couple percent at this point, and we're trying to eliminate that even more. That's where we are right now.
Yeah, because I'm curious, since we want to make sure to reach everyone, that there's people out there who are actually homeless, who don't have an address, who don't have a cell phone, and so the question is, how do we make sure that they're able to access it? So yeah, it's like biometrics and these other systems.
Well,
certainly
yeah, I mean that's a big
that.
part, but also this is a big part of where our nonprofit, which manages the currency, but also manages some of these other aspects, and one of the ones that's going to develop is providing identification for these groups that otherwise there's no other way to do. And so it takes really partnering with nonprofits, partnering with local governments, and figuring out ways to get that homeless person on the street who has no other way, or that refugee who has no form of identification, has no computer, has nothing that can provide them access, and giving them that. And so I had a great talk with 3 developers out of Boulder who are working on a protocol specifically for refugee identification, and it's something that's really critical to our project. We spend a lot of time working on that and continuing to develop it. It's not something that's going to fully be solved within 3-4 months, but it's critical to what we're doing, and we understand and
we're also that we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel ourselves.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
We don't have to solve all of this, because there's other projects and there's other nonprofits that are able to identify these kind of people and prove, that yes, this is a real unique human being who happens to be homeless, or a refugee or whatever. So we've already started talking with well-established nonprofits. We've also started talking with municipalities in a couple of different jurisdictions. Actually, one of our new advisors is actually the county executive of a county in the state of Virginia, near where I live. He's helping us to give us advice on how to reach out to municipalities and try to get their people in need in their communities signed up to receive Manna in very, very large numbers of people. So these are some of the pathways that we're pursuing for that.
Yeah, another aspect that I'm really interested in is this idea of these like child grants. So let's say someone can sign up for Manna who is under 18, but then they won't be able to access it until they're 18. So the effect of this was that you could essentially turn 18, and let's say you had been getting it your whole life. That could be actually a fairly large amount of mana and valued in whatever, the currency that they need to use. And yeah, just talk a little bit about this idea. And also, I just think it's interesting because you're essentially going back to, say, Thomas Paine, who was really talking about basic income, hundreds of years ago, is saying that due to no one having made land, and yet everyone having privatized it, that that everyone who owns land should pay a ground rent to everyone else who's been, who no longer has that land, and they have that value. And his idea was actually so that people could start at the age of 18 with this large capital grant through this.
Right, so it's the concept of basic capital. It also is often talked about as what's called a baby bond. The idea that, you shouldn't only be able to start your adult life with some money that you can use to go to college debt-free, let's say, or start a business or whatever you want to do. If you happen to be a person that's born into the Lucky Sperm Club, somebody that is born into a wealthy family. If you're just born into an ordinary family, or heaven forbid, a poor family, a child shouldn't be punished for being born into a poor family. They should have the same opportunities that people that are born into wealthy families have to start their adult life without having to go deeply in debt, even just to get a college education. So yes, we are doing a basic capital grant to any child is going to be eligible for this on the Mana blockchain. The currency that will be provided to them will be into locked wallets that they will gain access to at the age of 18, and then every child, hopefully, in the world will ultimately be able to have a nest egg that they can then use to get a better start in their adult life. And I think this is an idea that everybody should be able to support. It's a basic humanity kind of idea. Even if you believe that universal basic income for adults is maybe a little bit too socialist for your taste, but for kids, we got to help all children. That's the bottom line. No child deserves to be just desperately poor and have no economic opportunity in their life just because they were born into poverty. Mana is going to solve that problem, or at least try to.
Yeah, I think we'll end there. Thank you so much, Eric and John, for joining me on stage here to talk about Mana.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.